Welcome to today's episode of Fascinating Tales. Today, a nation once synonymous with hardship and conflict, scarred by colonial oppression and brutal wars, is rewriting its destiny. Vietnam is emerging as the new global manufacturing hub and a rising tech force. Popular media houses including CNBC are reporting that Vietnam is set to see the sharpest spike in wealth growth over the next decade. In this video, we'll explore Vietnam's incredible transformation, the untold stories behind its development, and the challenges that still lie ahead. For nearly a century, Vietnam was trapped under French colonial rule, a time when its resources were exploited and its people endured forced labor and oppressive taxes. This era sowed the seeds of resentment, culminating in a revolutionary movement led by one extraordinary figure, Ho Chi Minh. Ho Chi Minh wasn't the towering figure of brute force. However, he charmed international allies with his intellect and unwavering commitment. Though he admired some aspects of French culture, he found their colonial practices hypocritical. His journey, from studying abroad to rallying a nationwide independence movement, became a symbol of hope for millions. After years of struggle, Vietnam's fight for independence reached its boiling point in 1946, sparking the First Indochina War. Despite heavy losses, estimates suggest between 1 to 3 million Vietnamese, along with hundreds of thousands of Cambodians and Laotians, and nearly 60,000 U.S. service members. The dream of freedom could not be extinguished. The 1954 Geneva Accords divided Vietnam, setting the stage for the subsequent and far more devastating Vietnam War, a battle not just for territory, but for the very soul of the nation. The fall of Saigon in 1975 marked the end of this era, and the birth of a reunified Vietnam. Saigon is now known as Ho Chi Minh City in a country that had to start all over again. Emerging from the ashes of war, Vietnam was one of the poorest nations on earth. With GDP per capita once comparable to that of the world's most beleaguered economies, hope was scarce. But in December 1986, the government introduced Doi Moi, a series of radical reforms that would change everything. Farmers who once struggled under the weight of state-controlled collective farming were suddenly empowered to rent their own plots and keep their surplus produce. In many rural villages, this newfound freedom sparked an entrepreneurial spirit that would eventually ripple through the entire nation. From agriculture to industry, Doi Moi dismantled strict central controls and opened the door for private enterprise and foreign investment. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. A nation rebuilding itself from the inside out. Fast forward a few decades, and Vietnam's manufacturing sector is booming. Global giants like Nike, Adidas, Apple, Samsung, and Intel have found a new home in Vietnam. Why? The answer lies in a potent combination of competitive labor costs, strategic reforms, and a business-friendly environment. Just 1 year after the U.S. trade embargo was lifted in 1994, a relic of the Vietnam War, Nike established a factory in Vietnam. By 2021, the country had become the largest sourcing hub for several global footwear brands, accounting for nearly 40% of Adidas' production footprint. Today, foreign direct investment exceeds hundreds of billions of dollars, and over 40,000 investment companies are powering the nation's industrial ascent. Manufacturing now employs more than 33% of the workforce, up from just 21% a decade ago. Vietnam isn't just a factory floor. It's fast becoming a technology powerhouse. In 2023 alone, the nation exported over $57 billion worth of electronics, earning it a spot among the top players in global tech manufacturing. Vietnam also is rapidly transforming itself into a green energy leader, moving away from its past reliance on fossil fuels. The country's solar capacity exploded by over 600% between 2019 and 2020. But what kickstarted this green revolution? In 2017, the Vietnamese government introduced feed-in tariffs that incentivized solar power production. This move not only attracted foreign investment but also sparked a wave of domestic entrepreneurship, turning Vietnam into one of the most dynamic renewable energy markets in Southeast Asia. Samsung, which produces about half of its smartphones in Vietnam, plans to ramp up investments from $18 billion to $20 billion. And then there's Apple, whose investment has surpassed $16 billion, creating over 200,000 jobs. Even Intel has set up its largest global assembly and test facility near Ho Chi Minh City, signaling a seismic shift in high-tech production. But not all tech stories are flawless. Consider VinFast, a bold venture into electric vehicles. Their debut model, the VF8 SUV, was harshly critiqued by Donut Media, dubbed the worst-reviewed car in America. Instead of deflecting criticism, VinFast returned to the drawing board, overhauled its design, and invited critics for a re-review. Whether a clever PR move or genuine care for consumers, this openness to change is rare in the auto industry. Vietnam's rise isn't solely built on factories and tech. It's fueled by smart trade agreements and deep domestic reforms. Since joining ASEAN in 1995, striking deals with the US and eventually joining the WTO in 2007, Vietnam has been steadily integrating into the global economy. Domestic deregulation and efforts to cut red tape have made it easier to do business. In 2023 alone, nearly $36.6 billion flowed in as foreign direct investment, a 32% jump from the previous year. Such policies have been crucial in lifting over 40 million people out of poverty since the early 1990s. As a result, the middle class in Vietnam has surged from just 13% of the population in 2013 to an expected doubling by 2026. Even so, challenges remain. Around 20% of the population still lives on less than $5.50 a day, and rural regions, home to 61% of the people, continue to lag behind in access to opportunities. Corruption scandals, such as the infamous case involving Trong Mayan, where billions were siphoned off, serve as a stark reminder that progress often comes with growing pains. With a population where half are under 35, Vietnam is betting big on its future. Massive investments in education, public infrastructure, and even ambitious projects like a $67 billion high-speed rail network are reshaping the nation's landscape. In one quiet provincial town, a renovated school building now hosts classes in robotics and digital literacy, a far cry from its former state under a rigid socialist system. Such micro-transformations echo the nation's larger journey toward modernization and prosperity. Yet, while Vietnam's economic indicators are impressive, with an average growth of 5.8% compared to the global 2.9%, the country continues to grapple with disparities and the need for further reforms to ensure that growth benefits everyone. Vietnam's story is one of resilience, innovation, and transformation. While the nation has made incredible strides, becoming the new manufacturing hub and a rising tech force, the journey is far from over. As the middle class expands and infrastructure projects reshape cities, Vietnam still faces the challenges of corruption, inequality, and the need to ensure that progress reaches every corner of the country. Thank you for listening to this point, but what do you think about Vietnam's remarkable transformation? Can this once war-torn nation truly become a global powerhouse in the decades ahead? See you in the next episode, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more fascinating tales from around the world.